Cynefin is a small word, but this small word can mean many different things. It can mean home. More than that, it can describe where we feel we belong, or the community we find ourselves in, or even our connections to the natural world that surrounds us. It can also mean the culture or history of our local area. For a small word, it is very big, but it doesn't have to be. Your Cynefin can be as big or as small as you like. Everyone's Cynefin will be different too. Across Amgueddfa Cymru, we have workshops that investigate how history has shaped our Cynefin. If you have been to those workshops or not, this video is going to go through some simple steps on how to research your own history online, your own Cynefin. This research can help you make connections with your past and give you a stronger connection to your Cynefin. Let's use one of Amgueddfa Cymru's sites as an example. St Fagans National Museum of History. We know St Fagans is a village and a place where the museum is now. And the museum has brought together houses and buildings from all across Wales. But what was here before that? A good starting point is looking at maps. Luckily, many maps are digitised and are very easy to explore. The best place to access these is at the People's Collection Wales website. Click on the maps at the top of the page and then enter the place you are trying to research. We will enter St Fagans. At the top of the page, you are able to jump between different types of historic maps to see what was there in the past. Here is St Fagans Castle now, and here it is in the 1860s and the 1940s. We can even go back to the 1850s. The red pins and numbers relate to objects and stories that can be found across the People's Collection Wales website. These maps can show how the physical space has changed over time. What buildings were there then and what is there now? Exploring the map shows that the area where all the historic buildings are now were empty fields. What were these fields being used for? The tithe maps can help us answer this question. The National Library of Wales has all the tithe maps that are on the People's Collections website, but it contains information on who owns the land and what the land was used for. Search a location in the same way as before. A modern map will be displayed. On the right of the screen, you can pick from a satellite map, modern map, or a map from the late 1800s. You can also choose the tithe map overlay, which will show you the tithe map on top of the map you were already looking at. If we start by looking at the modern map where the Reedy Car cottages now stand, which were rebuilt at St Fagans. Overlay the tithe map and you can see it's built upon open land with numbers. With those numbers we can find out more. If you click on the nearest blue pin, a small list will pop up. It has information on who owned the land, who was living on it or renting it, and what it was being used for. If you select View Apportionment, you will be taken to the original list. You will then see the details in a written list. We can see that field 265 was a pasture field, which means it was used for livestock. It also shows the owner of the animals who were occupying the field, the Reverend Dr. Lissell. And it shows us the person who owns the land itself, Mr. John Montgomery Traherne. Just by exploring the maps, we have already found information on the people who used to live in the area and what the area was used for and what it looked like before it was built on. We even have names that we could search. When you have people's names, place names or buildings names, you can search Welsh newspapers online. Here we can enter a name and see what comes up in the newspapers from the 1800s. You may get lots of results, so use the filters on the left to search for specific years. When we search for the Reverend Lissell, we can easily find out that he was the rector at St Fagans Village. There is even an account in the newspapers of when his house was damaged in a freak flood in 1813. There is probably a lot more we can find out about him too, but we have another name, the landowner, John Montgomery Traherne. When we search his name, the newspapers tell us about all the history books he wrote and when and where he was born, his marriage and much more. You may not find out as much detail for your search, but as the newspapers list births, deaths, marriages and more, it is a good place to explore. Try searching the name of your street or town or particular buildings. We could also use the Amgueddfa Cymru Collections online search. This is a list of all the objects we have in our collection. We search John Montgomery Traherne, but nothing much comes up. But we do have much more information that we were able to get from the Welsh newspapers online website. The newspapers mentioned that he lived in a house named Coed Riglan, so we can search for that also. A photo of a house in 1850 comes up, and it is a photo of the house John Montgomery Traherne was living in and the house he died in. Within just a few searches, we have already started to build a picture of the past of our Cynefin. But the history we've discovered has only taken us back so far into the past. Wales is far older than a few hundred years. The further back we go though, the more difficult it is to find information, but the maps can help a little again. If we look back at the map for St Fagans, older maps will often have historical sites listed on them. Here on the St Fagans map, we see the words Battle of St Fagans AD 1648. That was the site of a battle during the Civil War, a battle that saw hundreds dead and thousands taken prisoner. You can use the historic sites mentioned on maps to try and get further back in time. Maybe your area had a medieval castle, or a Roman fort, or a Celtic village. Always remember you can use the Amgueddfa Cymru Learn website to get a general idea about the history you were researching. You can find books on medieval Wales, the Romans in Wales, and even the Celts. If you discover you have a coal mine in your area, but you can't find anything out about your specific coal mine, then look at our resources to get an understanding of what a coal mine would have been like in Wales. We even have 360 tours of many buildings. So if, like St Fagans, you have farming buildings in your area's past, but you don't know what they might have looked like, then exploring the farming buildings we have may help. Exploring the past to help inform your Cynefin is a great project and can lead to many interesting stories being uncovered. Keep in mind to always make notes about what you found and where you found it. And don't be frustrated if you don't find anything straight away, as all areas will be totally different. Some will be easier, some much harder. Good luck.